Greetings ladies and gentlemen, I'm GC Smith and welcome to an Aether Revolt spoiler video. Today I have two spoiler cards for you that were spoiled in the last 24 hours, and both of these cards are actually quite interesting, so we're going to be taking a look at them and hopefully having a little bit of evaluation of each card after talking about each card. So the first card we're going to be looking at is Quicksmith Spy. 3 in a blue for a 2/3 human artificer creature at rare. When Quicksmith Spy enters the battlefield, target artifact you control gains tap, draw a card for as long as you control Quicksmith Spy. This definitely does seem to be part of a cycle with Quicksmith Rebel. I actually don't know if this will be a whole 5-colour cycle with a Quicksmith in each of the colours. That's really hard to tell at this point, or whether Quicksmiths are just going to be part of the blue and red part of the format, especially for limited. I think these are meant to be rare because otherwise they're just insane, especially the Quicksmith Spy, because drawing a card is always very powerful, and when you get to staple that onto an artifact that doesn't have any other reason to tap, that's really, really good. Sure, Quicksmith Rebel can start winning you the game, but I don't think anything wins the game quite as quickly as drawing a turn of cards and drawing into your removal or other bombs. Sure, 2 damage a turn's good, but not as good as 5 or 6, and you may have a lot of stuff. Also, Quicksmith Spy can help you hit land to hit more expensive drops, which Quicksmith Rebel can't really do on its own. Obviously, I think this makes the blue one a significantly better card, especially since 3 toughness is better than 2, and the 3 power doesn't really matter so much because you're going to be able to trade it away quite easily. You can easily trade away with Quicksmith Rebel. If you pick up a card like Trophy Mage or any of the other 2-power creatures in the set, which are going to be probably a lot in the draft format, there's always a lot of 2-power creatures. Even if it's just a 2-mana 2/1, that is extremely relevant. Although I guess you kind of want it to be at least 3 toughness to be able to trade with the Quicksmith Rebel, otherwise the artifact might just zap it, so that's interesting as well. Although then there's always removal. But you know what I mean, it actually matters which one, how it's going to be working, really. That said, outside of limited, we'll see playing constructed. In standard, I don't know. It really depends on how much having artifacts on the field matters. We definitely see that artifacts are definitely going to be considered more relevant in this set than they were in Kaladesh. Sure, Kaladesh created a lot of artifacts, but it had very few cards outside of black and blue that cared about artifacts being on the field. And even then, the black one, it just wasn't the best archetype really there. Hopefully this could give a lot of power to that though, so who knows. And we do know that there's a ability called Improvise, which is basically Convoke, but instead of tapping creatures you tap artifacts to power it out, so that's pretty good. Though you can obviously tap an artifact creature if it's also an artifact, so that's pretty sweet. Outside of those formats though, Quicksmith Spy definitely seems to be a big powerhouse in Commander. The ability to interact with certain artifacts is incredibly powerful. This with Howling Mine draws you an additional card every turn, one from Howling Mine, well, an additional 2 cards a turn, one from Quicksmith Spy, one from Howling Mine, while your opponents draw nothing because Howling Mine doesn't draw them cards when it's tapped, and it won't be untapped until your upkeep, by which point it'll be tapped again before anyone else's turn, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. You can also combine this with cards like Winter Orb, which again only work when they're untapped. So you can leave it untapped during all your opponent's turns, tap it at the end of your last opponent's turn, and because it's tapped when all your stuff untaps, all your stuff untaps, not just one land, which again is pretty damn sweet. I really like this card. As an EDH playable, it's super sweet. The art looks gorgeous. But if there is a whole cycle of these, it'll be interesting to see what the other colours give. So far, we've kind of got parts of the original 1 mana do 3 amount of something. So we've had 2/3 of Lightning Bolt and 1/3 of Ancestral Recall. It's entirely possible we would get a mini giant growth on the green one if we had a green one, and a mini life gain thing on the white one, though the white one would be a bit really kind of meh. And obviously the black one tapping to add mana would be interesting, although that would just be mana ramp at that point, so I don't know if they print that in black. It's okay for black to occasionally get mana ramp, as we're about to see in the next card, but I don't think they do it twice in one set. Anyway, moving on, next we have Tezzeret the Schemer. 2 blue black for a Planeswalker Tezzeret Mythic Rare. It has a +1 of create a colourless artifact token named Ethereum Cell. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. -2, target creature gets +X, -X until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts you control. And -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5. Oh boy, this is a really hard card to evaluate on so many levels. I've been looking at this card all day. I've been thinking about it all day, trying to work out how to evaluate it. And it's just super, super weird. You know, I've been alternating between this card's good, this card's mediocre, this card has a lot of potential, this card has no potential. It's just really weird when you think of all these different corner cases and edges on how good a card like Tezzeret the Schemer is. It's just a really, really hard card to evaluate. What makes it easier to evaluate, though, is the fact that it starts at 5 loyalty. And when you start actually looking at how the standard format is, rather than Magical Christmas Land, this card does seem to get a little bit better. So let's take a look. Firstly, as I say, it starts at 5 loyalty, which means if you +1, it goes up to 6, which makes it a really hard Planeswalker to kill in the current format on turn 4 for your opponents, or turn 5 for them, depending what else they've got on the board. Especially if you combine it with either any defensive creatures, or any artifacts on the field, or any way to defend it whatsoever, including earlier removal spells. Remember, your objective at this point really isn't to keep him around on the board for, to safely ultimate, it's just to keep him around for an extra turn. Because if you untap with Tezzeret the Schemer on the field after already +1ing, you get to then +1 again and immediately be on guaranteed 6 mana, which is insane. This guy, even if you don't hit a 5th land, allows you to play a turn 5 Gearhulk, turn 5 Sorin, turn 5 any 6-drop in the format, if you hit a land any 7-drop in the format, which could bring us to a certain Dragon Planeswalker in the next block in Amonkhet. Yes, Nicobolus most likely will be a 7 or 8-drop Planeswalker, and Tezzeret allowing you to ramp straight into him on turn 5 does seem legit. It also really goes a long way to fixing your mana, which is good as well, because getting 2 artifact tokens, even if, 2 Lotus Petals effectively, really good at fixing your mana, even if only temporarily, because sometimes you need to fix your mana for 1 or 2 turns. You don't always need double red, double green, and double black. Most of the time you only need, in certain decks, or double green, double blue, double black, double white, or double blue, double black, double red. Most likely you'll need double blue and black most of the time, with double white occasionally in a control deck, maybe only for board wiping, or double red only occasionally for cards like Chandra or something like that. And Tezzeret the Schemer definitely helps you to hit them. Its -2 is not amazing. Obviously his +1 fuels his -2, but very slowly. Ultimately, I think this is much better against aggro decks, where having even only 1 artifact kills a lot of the creatures. And if you have 2, getting 2 artifacts out, again, kills so many more creatures. Definitely screams to me of kill a aggro creature, and that's mostly because if you're in the right shell with this guy, you're probably able to kill pretty much every other big threat an opponent deck has. Either because you're running Noxious Gearhulk, so you're able to insanely slam the enemy creature into oblivion while gaining loads of life, or because you're running, Torrential Gearhulk and able to flashback removal spells, or just running massive threats yourself that your opponent has to deal with, and that are bigger than your opponent's mid-range creatures. Your +1 can make a big enough threat that way. Sure, +2, its -2, will occasionally kill bigger threats, but it takes a lot of artifacts to kill some of the biggest threats in the format right now, in terms of Ishkana, Avacyn, or anything like that. As I say, good against the vehicles deck probably, and helps secure bad matchups against them occasionally, but it's still not the best thing in the format. And its -7 is pretty mediocre. You get an emblem with at the beginning of your upkeep, you get 5/5. Again, this is kind of one of those ultimates you never want to do without getting to 8 mana. You need him alive after this ultimate. Sure, a single ultimate does allow you to then make future Tezzerets basically make +1 and get a 5/5, which is interesting. But it's not as powerful as some ultimates can be. Not as powerful as even the most powerful Tezzeret's ultimates. Honestly, I do see what some people mean with this guy as Tezzeret the Master Metal being somewhat more powerful. Because sure, getting the ability to ramp out a Gear Hulk is good, but sometimes getting to just tutor one to your hand when it's the only artifact in your deck is better. Although, I don't know, the fact that he produces artifacts and actually has a relevant -2 in combination does seem a little bit more interesting. The fact that his -2 can also be a pump to help you finish up the game a little bit faster, again, is interesting. Sometimes, being able to -2 when you've got 5/5 and make it a 10, 9/1 does seem interesting sometimes. We'll have to wait and see exactly what goes on with this. I definitely like the fact that it can just help you finish up games a little bit faster as well. I do want to try him out in my blue-black control deck. Whether I don't... The only problem is he doesn't quite go well in a deck that's already running Metallurgic Summonings. You don't really want to tap out on turn 4 with that deck. You want to try and clear the board up with a bit of removal on turn 4 or cast a draw spell. And obviously this guy not being an instant or sorcery generally means he doesn't trigger it. I also don't really have that many free spots in the deck at the moment, but then again, there's a whole lot of things that can change with Aether Revolt. We don't have most of the spoilers yet. There's still a lot of cards to come. Artifacts being on the field might be more relevant in a control deck than it was before, especially now they've got a 5-mana wipe all artifacts from the board while it's on the field, so that could be interesting. Either way, a couple of decent spoilers today. I actually really like the cards that we've seen. They may not be the most powerful cards in the world, but they definitely seem interesting and more creative in design than some of the Planeswalkers or cards we've had in a while. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.